When I finally, in a way, gave in, I was a bit fearful of getting into fashion because it's such a competitive industry. And when I finally surrendered, and I remember praying and telling God, but it has to be some kind of fashion. I can't do the mainstream fashion. And the answer really came through working with the artisans. As I prayed, it was always that discernment that things were going to be different. It was going to be very difficult doing it because it was different, but the outcome was going to be well worth it. I grew up in Mindanao. My mom is from Basilan, my dad is from Lanao. And so having grown up in Iligan, I was exposed to the Maranaos. I remember the Maranaos coming in their malongs, and the colors were so beautiful, purple and fuchsia, blues and yellows. And it was a visual feast for me.
As a child, Len was exposed to all of these different kinds of culture, and we had many visitors, not only the locals, but we had a very active cultural program. I think that played an important role. It was natural for her to admire the local costumes, dressing up.
I used to dance a lot, whether it was like fandango, but the impression that it had on me was deepened when I danced for Bayanihan. I think I was more mature then, and it just opened a whole new world for me. I was astounded at the intricacy and the richness of our culture, and that awareness of the traditions of each group I was exposed to. And so I know it was all these seeds that were planted along the way, and it just had to burst out and manifest into something. I always thought I would get married at 28, and then I had cancer. I thought, oh, okay. It was soon after my birthday, and it had been months. I would feel something heavy on my throat, and finally, I went for a test, and right away, my cousin, who was my doctor, said, oh, let's do a biopsy. And it happened so fast. After taking the biopsy, as soon as she took it and put it on a plate or something, like a glass, she was like saying, her words were, wow, Len, it was like the most perfect specimen. I found out a few days later that she called me in, that I had cancer. It was my mom's birthday, so it was very hard for me to break it to her. So I told my family the following day.
As a mother, when I found out, not from her, but from somebody in the hospital who said, Mom, the results are ganyan. So when I came home, I was very quiet. Then Len said, I have something to tell you. And then I stood up and hugged her. I said, I already know.
Everything happened so fast that I think I had to come to terms with it for the next 3 years, because they kept on telling me, it's the friendliest cancer, don't worry, don't worry. And then 6 months after, I had to go for treatment, and then 6 months after, I had to go for treatment, and then 6 months after, and it stayed on for quite a while. I still go for checkup every now and then. I think that's like my thorn in the flesh. I think it keeps me grounded. It keeps me aware that life can just end. Once you hit really low, and I remember talking to God about it, that, okay, God, this is like the lowest. This is so low that I don't know where else to go, but it has to go up. And I remember telling God, okay, it's you and me together, like walking hand in hand. And it was amazing how in the next few years, I felt like I was being strengthened in that period. I was really afraid of fashion. I wasn't like, I felt like I didn't want to get into it. And so I created a home line. It was called 2 Mahogany Road with my sisters. We worked with artisans in Basilan and Iligan and Marawi. And my sister moved to Hong Kong, so that didn't work out. And then I started another clothing line, but that didn't work out.
Well, put it this way, this cancer didn't really affect her. The way she would talk to people, the way she handled herself, the way she was still working, it didn't affect her. And she's very positive minded. So she thought that, no, I can get over this. I've seen, it's been like, what, 5-6 years already? When she wanted to go into this fashion business, I said, okay, Len, you have the talent. You're very artistic. It's something that you can go into. You have to be really committed, and this will require a lot of hard work. Okay, but it is not just like because you want it, you will be successful.
When I first met Len, she wasn't fully into fashion yet. She was working on her mom's Coleman stores, and then she was just doing fashion spreads for magazines, styling for them. And then she put up a clothing line with a couple of friends, which lasted for a few years, and she was doing made-to-order blouses and dresses for formal wear. So that was the point where another friend and I sat her down to just help her figure out what it is she wants to do with her own brand. Like, what are your dreams? What are your visions for the next 5 years? And then she said, I wanted to have a fashion show in New York. So I said, okay, what are the necessary steps you have to take to get there?
I remember Karen and Kola sitting me down and just like telling me, okay, Len, you have to be serious. Okay, what is it that you really want to do? And I remember it was in Rockwell in the food court, and I sat there and I was crying, and I wasn't crying because I was hurt by what they said, but I actually felt that they really cared for me, that they really wanted me to have a good future, and so they really spoke the truth to me in love. And just, I remember one of the questions they asked, but with regards to fashion, would you want a fashion show? And I'm like, okay. No, it's not about okay, but where would you want to have a fashion show? I was like, New York. And so I didn't get to have the fashion show, or maybe not yet, but that is actually where I first started selling Filipina. It was in New York. So it was a different kind of fashion show. It was a trunk show.
And now, 14 years later with Filipina, she's achieved her goals and did more than anyone could imagine. And she's gained recognition both locally and internationally. So we're so proud of her. And I'm one of the few friends she invited to when she received her People of the Year award in 2019, given by People Asia. And we were really overjoyed with this momentous event because she has really gone over and beyond her goals for the brand and is continuing to grow. And it's been exciting to be by her side and watch how this brand has grown and evolved.
She's very artistic, and she's very fashion conscious. So that's the most basic. So if you want to go into this kind of business, you need to have an eye for fashion. But one thing also, she works very hard. Okay, once she's decided in doing something, she really invests her time in whatever she decided to do. That's what I've been seeing. So I'm not surprised why she's successful in this.
There was like an instance wherein I would desire something for the brand. And I'd be like, I wonder how it would ever happen. And then time would just reveal that it would happen. And I would not even have to work for it. It would just like fall on my lap. And I think that's the way God works. It's not like He sees what you desire, and if it's good, and if it will be according to His purpose, and if it's something that will be good for other people, He will make it happen. The first dress that we made, and in collaboration with the artisans, the amihan is the first time that we came in. If I remember right, it was red, blue, white, and yellow, which is the Philippine flag. And it had beads from Cebu. It had the Tiboli embroidery. It was reflective of the DNA of the brand, which was really going to present itself as something that is showing the artistry and the beautiful craftsmanship of the artisans, and how it will point back to the diverse culture of the Philippines from north to south. They work on the pieces in between taking care of their families. They work from home. They tend to their children or they cook, and so they do the embroidery in between. And so we wait. And when they're ready and when they're done, that's when we receive it, when we finish it, and that's when it gets sold. So it's very different from fast fashion. The last time I saw them was November of 2019. And then 2 weeks after, I got sick. Three months later, pandemic hit. And so I have not seen them for almost 2 years and 5 months. And packing for this trip, I was very emotional. I'd get teary-eyed, and I was like, okay, hold it in. It was like coming home and being among Bong's friends and family, and every trip always holds something special for me. Even this trip has just been, in a way, magical and it was quite bumpy. Not as quite bumpy as the first time I came here and had to go up and down and hike. I didn't realize, I think 2 years, I'm older by 2 years. And I was like, oh, is this age really? I'm like aching all over. But it's pain that's well worth it.
Masayang-masaya kami na nakabalik ulit si Ma'am Len dito sa amin. Alam mo yung magaan sa pakiramdam kasing kasama si Ma'am Len. Siya kasi yung masasabi kong leader or boss na hindi ka matatakot sa kanya. Palagay yung loob mo sa kanya. Kasi she treats you like a friend, like a sister, or like a daughter.
As an artist, Len is very creative and resourceful. So having gone with her on this trip to Lake Cebu, I was shocked at how she really went out of her way to visit the Tiboli groups, literally hiking mountains and riding habal-habals on dirt roads instead of just going to the co-op and sourcing her contacts from there.
We're in Klubi. I work with the weavers here. We built this weaving center for them. They were one of the first Tiboli artisans that I met probably 13, 14 years ago. And so they hold a special place in my heart. They've welcomed me. And so it's this process of working together that you get to work things out. So you go through hard times, but then I think the purpose was always to make it work. And it's like working together. And I think that's what I felt when I came here to Lake Cebu. There was like that sense of community. There was that willingness to share their culture. And I thought that it was so fitting that the first group that I worked for Filipino was actually the Tiboli. I think it's very unusual for a fashion brand to follow such a process. I remember when I was starting the brand, my friends were like saying, why don't you just hire embroiderers here in Manila and just do what you want to do? And I was, again, it was really that I think it was planted at such an early age, that respect and appreciation for the culture and knowing that they own the patterns. If I was going to do cross-stitch embroidery using Tiboli patterns, it had to be the Tiboli working on them.
Nagtanong siya sa amin kung saan nanggaling yung mga design. Yung design kasi galing sa ninuno. So sabi ko kay Ma'am Len, kasi kami yung mga anak nila, parang drawing lang yung ginagawa namin, ginadrawing namin sa notebook namin, ganyan. Sabi nila, galing daw, yung design namin, galing daw yun sa panaginip, sabi ng mga matatanda.
I think there's a lot of images that have retained in my head. And it's all these retentive images that I've collected all throughout my years. It comes from an image, whether it's a pattern of an embroidery or a beadwork or the weaving, and picking up from there and just finding a way to make it work within a garment. So it really comes from the fabric itself or the embroidery or the pattern, and then we start looking at silhouettes where we can incorporate it. And then we create, like, I think just recently we just started creating a tech pack where it's more detailed on how the placement of the embroidery and the colors that they're going to use, and then it's sent to them, and then we basically wait until they finish. They work on the pieces in between taking care of their families. They work from home. They tend to their children or they cook, and so they do the embroidery in between. They don't go to one place and embroider 8 to 5. No, they embroider when they want to. And so we wait. When they're ready and when they're done, that's when we receive it, when we finish it, and that's when it gets sold. So it's very different from fast fashion. The challenge is really communicating with them, and I love visiting them. So to be able to spare some time to visit everyone, it's really not possible. So that's when a phone call comes handy. It's the process of just imagine that we're in our design studio, and then you have to shift your thinking from, okay, Tiboli, they do this process. It means that the garment is a whole garment when we send to them. Okay, I'm dealing with the tausug. Okay, tausug, they want it a flat lay. So issuing the production to the workshop means they'll lay out the fabric and then do a basting around the pattern so they know where to put the embroidery. That's the tausug. Oh, we're working with the mangyan. So it means that it's a whole garment, but their embroidery is different. You continuously, like, there's like a shift. You're always like adjusting to the culture of the indigenous groups that we work with. And I think it's a challenge, and yet it's, you get as a creative person, you get high out of that, because I think all these different images come to mind as you're shifting to a particular indigenous group. The challenges really is the distance. We work with people in Tawi-Tawi, and it takes a while for packages to get there. We work with artisans in Paracelis, which means that we have to wait until they go into town for us to know that they finished the garment. It's all these different challenges, but from the very start, my mindset has been always to make things work. When I need to apologize about something that I did wrong, I apologize. And the work continues. I think what I really appreciate about working with the artisans that we work with, the more I visit them, I think the relationship gets stronger and stronger.
15 years old po ako nag-umpisa magborda. At tinuro po ako ng aking mama, and then nakatulong po ito.
Nabago na po talaga kasi noon medyo nahirapan kami sa aming paghanap buhay. Tapos nung nakilala po namin si Ma'am Len, yun, sobrang asin. Tapos napamahal na po talaga siya sa amin kasi yung sa ginawa niya po sa amin sa paghanap buhay namin po.
Yung umpisa pa lang kami ni Ma'am Len, kahit ako, yung bahay ko, kubo lang. Lahat-lahat kami, walang sin, walang concrete, wala, kahit ako. Lahat ng pamilya, grabe yung pagbabago sa pamilya, bawat pamilya.
They've given me so much. It's a mutual admiration. It's a mutual benefit. No one is higher than the other. It's really, when people ask me that question about me giving back to them, I think I get so much more out from them. That I think whatever I give back falls short of that. And I think there's always that part of me that's always thinking it's lacking what I'm doing. And I think it's such a gift to be able to wake up each morning and do what I'm doing. And I think it's something I shared with the design team recently, that I really hope they feel the same, because for me personally, it's such a gift to be able to live my life doing this. Whether it's like 5 people, 3 people, 5 people, but you're able to learn from each other and create an impact, or even like a legacy on these people, and somehow they've learned something from you and you've learned something from them, I would think that's a successful life. So I remember my first trip after meeting Evelyn, having given her the clothes. I asked around, how do I get back to Jensan, because my mom had just dropped me off here, and they were like telling me, oh, you hop on a motorcycle and then you get to Surala and go to the van terminal, get the van that will lead you to somewhere. I remember I was in the van and just thinking to myself, wow, this is like one great adventure. And truly, it was reflective of what the 13 years has been. It's been one great adventure. It's been such a blessing to be working with the artisans. It's a relationship that keeps on growing and changing and improving, and there's so much that they've taught me. There was one turning point. I think it was in 2011. At that point, my mindset was I'm enjoying working with the artisans and all that, but I remember when a visitor from New York came. Evelyn and her group presented a program. They were dancing and they started giving speeches. They started crying and they were explaining that, you know, they used to farm, and when a typhoon hits, it just destroys the crop, or whether it's like pestilence. But they knew that when they saw a garment, they knew already that once it's finished, they were getting that amount. And it was something that they could depend on. And my mindset changed. It was the first time that I realized that there was more to it than me enjoying the work. I basically made that promise to myself that I was going to do everything that I could to make it work. Little did I know that there would be sacrifices that would have to be made, and a lot of hard work, and a lot of trusting God, that God will find a way to make things work. I would think that my personal legacy is being able to live out my life this way, wherein I'm engaging with artisans around the Philippines. The relationships that I've had, that I have now and will continue to nurture in the future, it's those people who will tell of the legacy. It's pushing the different indigenous groups into the forefront in the context of fashion. And the way it has maybe changed their lives, that would be my legacy. Smart Infinity has helped me achieve this legacy that I hope to pass on to the artisans that I work with. It's something close to my heart. You know that I've gone through cancer, and 3 years ago I was diagnosed with Bell's palsy, and it just made me think about how I eat, just how to have a healthy lifestyle, and the idea for the youth program came from that. The UTA program is a regenerative livelihood and ecosystem restoration that focuses on food sovereignty, a combination of the traditional ecological knowledge of the artisans and their culture, combining it with permaculture.
Sinabihan kami ni Ma'am Len yung gardening. So yung yuta, kung okay na yung gardening namin, pwede naman yung sila ni Nancy, naka-income na din sila. Yung sa pitsay nila, binibinta dahil yun sa garden.
We just finished the phase 1, so phase 2, this is where Smart will be coming in. 10 artisans will plant their own vegetable garden within their homes, and we hope that it does not just benefit the artisans that we work with, but actually the whole community.
It was such a privilege to be able to tag along with Len this time to Lake Cebu. I always would tell her whenever she'd come home with stories that next time I want to go. Just meeting the Tiboli tribe, they're such beautiful people, and they gave us such a warm welcome. And again, seeing the impact of Len in their individual lives and in the community as a whole was just jaw-dropping.
Oh, it gives me so much joy to see what she has accomplished. And I'm glad she inspired a lot of people who are doing the same thing. And it's such a good thing.
So we're at the design studio, and this is where it all starts. This is where we plan, discuss, and design the collections for Filipina. Behind me is basically a reminder board for me. It's a collection of all these notes that I've had all throughout the years. Like, for example, one of the first notes that I wrote was fit well, made well, looks well. It's memorabilia and sample embroidery. This is quite a special coat. It was made by Carmen Quatic. She was working on this coat when she passed away, and so it's not finished, but I'm planning to just keep it as is, as a way to honor her work and put it in a frame as we move to our new design studio. The artisans are very proud. I remember when our upper coat was featured in an ongoing TV series, I would get countless messages from them saying they couldn't have imagined to see the coat being used in a film or in a drama. When they embroidered it, it was on a fabric. They didn't actually see the finished product. They didn't realize how beautiful it was when it was actually finished. It's very encouraging to see them inspired by their own work and how they see that it's being appreciated by fellow Filipinos. I'm sketching a coat that would be my dream piece to make with the artisans. It would probably be a terno coat. If it's feasible, all the artisans that we work with would probably contribute to a stitch. And maybe it could travel from one artisan to another and they put something. And we wouldn't create a pattern, but they'll just put in whatever they want to create. And let's see how the tapestry will come out. And probably that will be a great story of the artisans in one garment. Well, we're ensuring that it's passed on to the children, and the way to do that is really to show them that it's something that will give them, good extra income. Another way is to show them how beautiful their culture is and show the appreciation in a very concrete way. So we hope that in our little way, we feel that we're a bridge, the cover to a book, that when people see the garments that we create, they'll be interested in the indigenous groups that make them and have a bigger awareness and knowledge of how rich the Philippine culture is. Success is a tricky thing. It can go both ways. It can be very empty or it can be very fulfilling. Success would be empty if it's only for myself, but if it's success that includes, whether it's 5 people, 3 people, but you're able to create an impact or even a legacy, and somehow they've learned something from you and you've learned something from them, I would think that's a successful life. My dream is that they continue the brand even when I'm gone. I've always felt that it was mine. I always felt like I was taking care of something that I could pass on to them. I think it would be a dream if the children would get into it. Who knows, a future creative director of Filipino would be someone from the artisans that would be just amazing.